It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, superheroes, and mayonnaise, apparently, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Miracle Whip Chris.
My name is Mayo Mike, I guess?
Mayo Mike, it's got a nice ring to it. But this week, we've got our first look at Superman's new logo, Mike. And I would have bet money that would have been our thumbnail this week, but you surprised me, and I love what you pulled out. So everyone else is done. So we're going to talk about Superman and James Gunn on social media as usual. More Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem sequel gets a release date. Mike, confirmed release date. That's great.
Not the only turtle news this week.
No, absolutely.
I mean, with our list of show notes, like if you do the math, like it's like 50% turtles almost.
Yeah, absolutely. There could be more. I think we might talk about more as we get to it, but we'll bring it up as we get to it. We have pulled up our Google Maps because we don't trust Apple Maps to get our directions to Jurassic City. And you may be wondering, you're probably not wondering what that is because the logo gives it, or the thumbnail gives it away. But the sequel to Jurassic World could possibly be titled Jurassic City, and we'll talk about all those fun little details and more in the show today.
All right, let's get into it, Chris.
Okay.
We started a conversation just before we started
Mike,
recording.
He comes at me with a loaded question. Like he's like, all right, we're rolling. All right, so your phrase was, do you get mayonnaise ick? And I'd never heard of this phrase before, so I had to have him repeat it and explain it to me.
Okay, I have to say, somebody can enjoy mayonnaise as a condiment and still get mayonnaise ick, and that's where I'm at right now. I have two vivid examples to tell you about mayonnaise ick. The first one is like back in the day. I want to say this was like early 2000s. Like the Fox affiliate in our area aired a like food eating challenge. This was like during the reality competition like craze. I'm sure this was like buttoned up right up against like American Idol, where they bought like all these competitive eaters up on stage and they had to compete against like these like different challenges. And I remember one of them was, it was like just 5 people up on stage, and whoever could eat like the most jars of mayonnaise would be the winner. And I was dying. I was like, this is disgusting. Yeah. Like, I enjoy mayonnaise on a sandwich, on a burger, but like the fact that somebody's just eating mayonnaise like makes me want to hurl. And then more recently in the future, we were at the grocery store, and there was kind of like this cheese dip that was being sold in the deli, and it was like something that you like dip crackers in. It was kind of reminiscent of like a unformed cheese.
I was gonna say, it sounds like a
cheese,
like a cheese ball that is like more liquidy, like a little softer.
Yeah, and it was
just ball.
So like I start eating it, and I'm like, oh wow, this is pretty good. This reminds me of something I had back in the Midwest growing up. Did you buy this, or was it like a sample thing? I bought it.
Okay, cool.
It came in one of those kind of like clear like deli containers that they printed a sticker to close it.
Oh yeah.
And then I look at the ingredients, and this cheese dip had like 3 ingredients. It was like cheese, mayonnaise, and like seasoning, and I was like, my brain just immediately ran to the ick, because even though it tasted good, ignorance was bliss. And the fact that I learned that I was just dipping a cracker essentially into mayonnaise with some cheese in it, like I was like, no. I threw it away. I even like looked at my wife. I was like, I know this is silly. I know I just told you this tastes really good, but now that I know it's entirely mayonnaise, I cannot eat it.
So I just imagine you like the scene in Ace Ventura when he finds out that the police officer he kissed was a man, and he went like took a shower.
His Einhorn,
yeah. Like I just imagine like you're like you got the plunger on your mouth in the bathroom. You're in the shower crying, at this revelation.
Yeah, it was bad. So essentially, I asked Chris just nonchalantly, like, "Oh, do you have mayonnaise ick?" And he comes at me with the exact opposite. You would be eating those jars of mayonnaise on stage.
Look, if it was socially acceptable, I would entirely eat mayonnaise or Miracle Whip out of a jar. Because it's just I've got a palate for it. I grew up here. It's not the South, but Southern Indiana, Kentucky area. You know, coleslaw is made with the mayonnaise, like the homemade mayonnaise. You're not pouring Miracle Whip in the coleslaw around here, I'll tell you that. But it just adds flavor to it. I love it. You know, to me, it's an important part of BLTs. You know, something I had for dinner earlier this week. I don't know if you put that on your sandwich or not, but like,
no, that's what I'm saying. If the mayonnaise is like an ingredient or a condiment, like not the volume of what I'm eating. I love me a BLT, man. If the mayonnaise is dripping out of it, oh yeah, I'll scoop that up. But like, it's psychologically,
this is wild. To me, that's the same thing because it's absolutely. But I will tell you, there's one thing I would put Miracle Whip / mayonnaise on that you may not think of, and Mike,
God,
and that
I'm
is
not prepared for this.
No, it's fine. It's a grilled cheese, some lettuce and mayonnaise on between a grilled cheese after you cook it.
Okay, that's not so crazy. I mean, have you heard of people replacing the butter in a grilled cheese with mayonnaise?
Oh, absolutely,
that's like
legit. And this is like one step from that, but I love the taste of the mayonnaise, the Miracle Whip.
Yeah, I know. This is crazy, and the only reason I brought it up is because, as listeners know, I think we've brought this up plenty of other times. Like, coming from the middle of the country, I am infatuated with ranch dressing, which is a big mental hurdle for me because I can't remind myself of how it's made because it's essentially mayonnaise, buttermilk, and seasoning. So yeah, you got the buttermilk in there to like, you know, at least thin out the definition of how much mayonnaise is in there. But like, I looked over at my wife the other day and I was like, can I just replace the mayonnaise with sour cream? I don't know how you feel about sour cream. But I wouldn't eat it with a spoon out of a tub, but I'm much more comfortable with sour cream. Like,
as a man who has eaten a spoon of sour cream out of a tub, Mike, there's just not a lot of flavor in there. It's not. You have to mix it with something. It just doesn't come naturally with much flavor to it.
This is all coming kind of full circle. Like back when we highlighted the Shang-Chi cake that we made from the old vintage comic book recipe. God, I think that was like 2 years ago now.
It would have had to been 3 years.
Liked it a lot,
yeah.
And I was just kind of like okay with it because it was just basically cream cheese on top of a pound cake. I mean, sour cream on top of a pound cake. Yeah. It's all coming full circle. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a long-winded way of saying just before the episode, I made up some of my own homemade ranch, and I just subbed the mayonnaise for sour cream, so
it's pretty
pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I've heard that works out. You know, you get the powder mix, put in sour cream. Now, I want to tell you, as someone who comes from a regionally similar area as you, right? I don't care for ranch. I find it bland. I think ranch. Everyone's like, you know what? I don't care for ranch. I don't care for blue cheese. I'm a spicy person. I like a lot of flavors and heat and stuff like that. So I lean opposite of ranch, if you will. But like they're yin and yang, right? Like you can have one, you can mix them together. I know what was it? The kettle chips had the buffalo dip and ranch. Was it buffalo and ranch mixed together chips? I believe for a little bit. Good. Yeah, they were okay. Didn't care for the ranch part of it. You know, it's just. That's how I operate. So I mean I understand. Like I know. Like, I also like I think I had this conversation earlier this week or maybe last week with somebody else. But like me and I believe your wife as well. We taste the soap in cilantro. You know where you have that gene,
and that's a genetic component.
Yeah. So sure. Like you know I don't do cilantro on everything. Everyone looks at me like I'm blasphemous. I'm like I can't help it. It's not something I can do. So I don't think it's tied to that necessarily, but you know, the flavor palettes to each and of their own. You know, it's like it's like movies, or you know, maybe you're a fan of Madam Web. Maybe that's your palate. You know, maybe that's your mayonnaise. But really,
no, Madam Web is my ick. 100% for sure.
Well, it's funny, but you know, before we can get here, local news: a semi driver drove over a bridge in Louisville. To where it was literally the truck was hanging over it and the cab was hanging from the truck. It did not fall in the river somehow, Mike. Like if that's not the best advertisement for a trailer hitch company I've ever seen, I don't know what is.
Chris, you really missed out on an opportunity. If you just would have sent me just the image alone and not the link to the article and told me this was like set footage from like Venom or something like that, I would have 100% believed you. You are totally right. This looks exactly straight out of like a Spider-Man, a Spum movie.
It looks staged because like nothing. The driver, she is fine. They were able to rescue her with the fire and rescue her by rappelling off the bridge. Nobody was hurt. At least, you know, horribly that I know of. No one died. And the way this thing is dangling looks staged. It looks like you couldn't have planned it more perfectly to be the truck up in the trailer, or the truck up in the bridge things, this truck hanging over, the rescue footage of the people like coming down to get her. It looks like a movie scene, right? Like identical. So it's wild to me that this happened on the only non-toll bridge in between Louisville and Indiana.
Yeah, I put a link in the show notes because I don't want people to miss out on the. It's just so it's so cinematic.
Yeah.
Like I really wish superheroes existed so I could just kind of like see all the TikToks of people on the bridge recording a spider person swinging in the save the day.
Yeah, well, it's also the worst part about this is Louisville, so it would have been like again. Dollar General Spider-Man coming to get it. We're not New York. We don't have real problems.
It would have been like Shazam adjacent because I just think of more of like an industrial city, kind of like Philadelphia, kind of matching the bridge aesthetic in this photo.
Yeah, someone's playing I Need a Hero. She was listening to that in the semi, and that's what distracted her. She drove off, and Shazam catches it. So absolutely. But again, we joked about it on our chat. Like, if they fell in the Ohio River, what powers would they get? And it would not be anything good. It would not be anything fun. It would not be spider powers. Would not be future prescient powers. It would be, just, hey, you got cancer. That's your power all of a sudden. So, but thankfully no one's hurt. No one fell in the water. It's all good. But boy, what an adventure yesterday was whenever someone told me that was happening. And I didn't believe it. I just didn't believe it. So.
Well, obviously, this is proof right here that you are not super powered in any way. You did not suit up.
No.
You're not going and save the day. We are nothing but armchair quarterbacks when it comes to superheroing.
That is correct. We can sit here and tell you what you should have done all day long. Was it Captain Hindsight? Wasn't that his name in that South Park episode? He had the power of
I think
power
so,
2020 vision, and he's like, you shouldn't have done that. Like, yes, thank you, Captain Hindsight. But anyway,
well, Chris,
yes, let's get
something else that takes all day long is 3-hour runtimes of movies.
Yes, especially when there's like two of them to watch one whole story. But last week, we kind of mentioned we recorded a little early. Mike was nice enough to let me do that so I could go watch Dune Part 2, the fan screening at the local theater. Got there. Boy, what a very understaffed theater on a Sunday evening. You don't really expect a lot of people at the movies. It was very understaffed, but I will tell you, we had a full house there at the IMAX screening for Dune Part 2. Every other person had that damn sandworm popcorn bucket. They were selling it there. They had it out on the counters. People were just buying them up to take with them as they went into the theater. So it's going to be popular. Probably not very scarce. So if you're looking to get one, you can probably get one. But I'm gonna, I have Dune Part 1 is a great film. It is very well done, very well told story. Even if you've not read the book, it's still great. Dune Part 2 will not convert you if you didn't like Part 1. It is an exact continuation of Part 1 with the quality, the characters, the cinematography, the story, everything. Just it just continues. Like, if you were to watch it one go, you wouldn't think it was two movies, right? At this rate, so I got to give it credit to that. So if you love Dune Part 1, you're gonna love Dune Part 2. I will say some of the things that Mike, for people who don't know the story and who haven't seen the movies so far, probably like yourself, right? I don't think you've watched the first one yet, right?
Have not yet.
I will say, the story focuses on Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, and his characters around him, including Zendaya, Shani, and the Fremen people. So a lot of the characters you see in the trailer are like the stars. They don't get as much screen time as you would think, but that's also part of the story. Like, you don't go elsewhere. So if you're looking to catch 3.5 hours of like Leah Seydoux' character, or even what's it, Austin Butler, he's not in the whole movie, right? So you might be more disappointed going into this based on the advertising, but overall, I think Dune Part 1 and Part 2 will go down as I hate the word classic, but like cinematic art for the 2020s, if you will. The
That's
20s.
Good to hear. Well, I mean, I was going to ask you, because one of the things that has kept me from indulging in this franchise, of the biggest feedback that came back from Part 1, that it was a Part 1. It was, you did not get a conclusion of a story out of this, and if you wanted the full narrative, you're going to need to watch both parts. So I keep seeing headlines of like a third part, in development with the script. And you've brought up in the past on the show that there's other material out there in the universe and other books.
Yep.
So it seems like the franchise might be continuing, but has this story kind of concluded in part 2? Do we have like an ending to look forward to?
Yeah.
If I do a back-to-back?
Yeah, I would say it ends well more definitively than the first one does. The first one is like, hey, you're getting hyped for this. This one really takes, if they did the whole book in one movie, you wouldn't get this. There's a lot of conflict about what it is to be Timothée Chalamet's character and the people and the galactic, empire and politics. Very Game of Thronesy. If you're a Game of Thrones person, you're absolutely going to love these two movies back to back. Now, there are, about 20 books in the Dune franchise that span thousands and thousands of years. This one is still the first book. The third movie should be the second book, which picks up right after this. But there are some changes to the material for the movie that wouldn't make sense if you read the books. Things in the book don't make sense when you watch the movie. It'd be very, very hard to get into. Very, very weird, abstract stuff. So they've made some changes towards the whole movie, but more towards the end to kind of fit the theme and keep everything. Hey, this is more about, I wouldn't say realism, but it keeps it grounded, whereas the other book gets real wild, real freaky. One of the books, one of the dudes turns into a sandworm with a human face, down the novel series, way down the river. So yeah, absolutely. I think there is a good ending for this, but it definitely leaves room for that second book, third movie to take place without it feeling kind of shoved in there, right? We need to make another sequel because it was popular. No, it feels like they've got it ready to go if they want to. That answer your question?
Yeah, fantastic.
And there are also no post-credit scenes, so you don't need to worry about those at all. But absolutely, had a good time. Absolutely, would recommend to anyone. But I would also say again, thankfully, I watched part 1 before we went into part 2 because they do not give you a recap of anything. They're just hey, boom, we're rocking and rolling on that. The other flip side of that coin is I've owned, but I've not had a chance to play is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, Mike, have you ever played Final Fantasy VII for PS1?
So I played the original in its entirety back when I was a burgeoning teen. I think I either had a physical walkthrough with me or I had just gotten to the internet and I was on forums and I was trying to min and max materia. I got way too into the weeds with it. And then when the remake started coming out, I played a little bit of it where I beat 1.5 bosses, and then it just got really complex and I moved on to other things. So I've played I've had an experience on both of them.
Okay, great, because I never played Final Fantasy VII at all, the original one. So I skipped it. I started with 8 as about the time I had a PlayStation. So I'm very familiar with Final Fantasy 8. 7 not so much. I have no affinity for the original, if you will. Kind of, we talked about that baggage, the weight, the nostalgia. I don't have that for this. So I was able to jump in the remake, and I played the demo on my PlayStation 4 when it came out, but I bought the was it the PlayStation 5 upgrade for this later when it came out. So I've been playing on my PlayStation 5, and I'm having a good time. My cat is just having a blast behind me.
I love it.
She heard us talking about mayonnaise, got hungry.
Oh God!
But Final Fantasy Remake, to me, it's a third person. You're controlling Cloud. You have the ability to use other characters in battle. I will tell you, my fingers aren't jiving with the L1, R1, L2, R2 things, because sometimes it's run and sometimes it's action when you're in battle. The controller changes depending on what you're doing. So I haven't really got that down yet, so I feel a little goofy. But thankfully, like the classic Final Fantasies, when you want to control another character or tell them to do something, the action pauses. So you're not getting whipped, your ass isn't getting whipped in real time while you're trying to figure out what's going on. So I can always just, pull up that menu real fast. I don't have to stress about it. I can choose what I want and go back into the live action scenes where I'm controlling either so far Barrett or Cloud, right? The two characters. One's got guns, one's got swords. Which one do you prefer? So I'm not familiar with materia. I haven't got a summons yet, but looking forward to it. Now everyone might know, hey Chris, why are you playing this game all of a sudden 3-4 years later? Well, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the second in this remaster or remake trilogy, came out this week on February 29th. So I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity to visit this, because if I do enjoy this game, and I can go get into Rebirth, but if you have a save file for remake or intermission, you get summoning materia for the new one. So you can get Leviathan or somebody else in the Rebirth game when you start off right away.
Yeah.
So
This is the part of the video game industry, especially out of Japan, where it starts to kind of lose me as a more casual player, because I've already lost the thread of all this. This must be what it feels like to kind of be a normal person experiencing the MCU. We are plugged into it. We know the timelines. We know when things are coming out. We know when things are canceled and stuff. But to me, Final Fantasy VII used to just be one video game. It came in 4 different discs because the install was so big. Well, I guess you technically weren't installing.
You were reading the
you were
disc,
just moving on from one disc to another. But now that there's a second part, the answer I want to know is, well, how many parts do they plan to
3
make to finish out the entirety?
they've said it's a trilogy, which is good.
Which to me is pretty wild, because when you play the original game, right now, Chris, you are entrenched in that city. You are in the depths
Midgar?
of it.
Is there something like that?
Yeah, you're even on some of the outskirts, some the cities around it, right? In the original video game, Midgar is just the first
level,
little world. Once you kind of beat the main boss there, you move outside of it. You approach an entire continent. You're all over the map. You're in wilderness. You're riding chocobos. You go to you sail across the sea to a casino city. So it's so crazy that the first part, so much of it is just entrenched in Midgar, which I don't necessarily think it's bad. The gameplay is very interesting and the scape is very beautiful. But to me, it's how do they fit all of that into 3 parts if they haven't even moved out of Midgar yet?
So my understanding from this is that, and they allude to it early on, that there are essentially something has happened and we are in an alternate reality compared to the original Final Fantasy VII. And there are what I look like. Remember the Flash TV show had those phantoms? When he changed time, they chased him around. They wanted to correct the timeline or whatever. The Wraith Flash. It's these wraiths that only the characters who are involved in this can see. I know there's a character called I know Sephiroth. I know he's a villain. He has appeared to be in visions several times, but it hasn't explained to me why he's in my visions yet. Just that I have a history with him, but we're very I'm still I just met it. My first big vision with him, I just met Aerith. Well, in the real games, my understanding is you don't meet Sephiroth until you're out of Midgar, right? And you fight him much later in the game, or at least the second quarter. So I don't understand. I don't know how big the first one is, but boy, they have really. There's a lot of hey. Walking down a train, talking to people on a train, which I assume in PlayStation 1 era was just, hey, you get on the train and then you get off the train. But they actually expand the train ride into an actual ride with conversation pieces to build out the world and the characters a little more.
They're definitely fleshing out more, and the combat's really intense too. I remember one of the first boss fights, you're fighting a big robot that I think shoots fire at you.
Yeah.
And you're just getting a handle of swapping between players and switching over to the range character when you need to do range attacks and the other way around. And I remember these boss battles take a long time. You can't just beat a boss real quick, even if you know exactly what to do. It is an exercise in endurance, which I actually think is kind of a cool gameplay mechanic of just most video games, I feel I'm squatting on potions, I'm sitting on revives and Phoenix Downs and stuff. I'll only use them in an emergency. But I remember in the remake, I was playing oh no, I am emptying out my entire inventory just to beat a boss, and I actually think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they when it says a boss battle, you're getting a boss battle. Is my experience on that first one, right? I've not gotten enough to fight the second one yet, but it is not oh, you're gonna go up here. Oh, did you over level yourself? Because you can't over your level yourself because there's no extra people to kill, right? You have to do things in the moment and stay alive. And I think he was he has a tail laser that robot did, so you had to hide behind the stuff. And sometimes I wouldn't hide in time because I'm I don't know what dash is right now, because boy, I feel goofy playing with this controller. So absolutely, I remember I was like, man, I'm gonna probably one of these dudes is gonna die, and I'm gonna have to revive him and figure out how to beat it. But we were able to get through. But I'm enjoying the world of Final Fantasy VII for the first time. Midgar, the Mako reactor. Just learning kind of about it as I go, and not having like the memories or the history that you do of like, oh, to me, I would never have known Midgar is just the first level, and then you get bigger. To me, that is the game, right? For now. So I am enjoying that, and it just looks good. Again, Square Enix, when they make a Final Fantasy game, whether it's good or bad, it's just a beautiful game through and through, and I've not had any issues or stutters, so I do enjoy that. And the one thing I do also enjoy about this, Mike, and I preach this over and over again: single player story, no shop, no I guess cosmetic DLC. You get the game, you play the game, and that's what it is, right? I think that's fantastic.
A video game.
Yeah, and there's nothing else to it. So.
We're like old men shouting at clouds.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't have to worry. Is the servers online to play this? No, I don't have to worry about. Am I online? I can play offline with it because literally it doesn't require an internet connection to work. So that's always a plus. Now, mind you, I still play my online games all the time, but like, if this has been a really, really, I wouldn't say relaxing, but it's definitely good to branch out here, right? It's springtime. I want to get out of my house, but I can't get out of my house because the weather wants to fluctuate from snowing to sunny, so I've got to sit in and do something. So to get new scenery, Mike, I've been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, but you are catching up on some old stuff here. You're in the opposite. I'm on the cusp of today and now, and you're like, well, maybe I'll catch up on some stuff,
which is typical fashion, it seems like, on this show. The wife and I finally watched Oppenheimer last night. It got to a point where we kind of needed to like plant a flag and say we're watching it tonight, because similar to Dune, it's a 3-hour runtime, so this isn't something we can kind of casually put on. We had to make plans.
Yeah, I was gonna say you need to pay attention to it as well. Like, it's not like I'm gonna be working out and watching Oppenheimer. Probably doesn't work for a lot of people.
Exactly. And it's always fun, to watch. Well, fun might not be the exact right word, but it's nice to kind of settle in and watch like an auteur film from a filmmaker that constantly puts out quality work, even if you don't end up enjoying the story sometimes. Like Tenet with me, at least you're kind of seeing like high level filmmaking. So it's always kind of exciting knowing like, oh, at least I'm going to be pleased in some way. Oppenheimer was like incredibly dense. Like I was surprised with how frenetic it was for such a, I don't want to say like typical story, but like we're not talking about high concept science fiction. This is essentially like a biopic of Oppenheimer, and like, man, your brain just does not get a second to relax until like they cut and go to the next scene, the next location, the next exterior, the next character, the next interrogation room. You're going from one to another, so that pacing really keeps your interest and is entirely essential for a 3-hour runtime movie. It seems strange that maybe the meter for success now is your movie interesting enough to keep me from picking up my phone. Not because I don't think movies are interesting anymore. It's just like we're all addicted to these other screens, and you always just want to check, let me just see if anything else is going on. But yeah, this held my interest, and I learned a lot. I wasn't expecting it to be so educational, right? I didn't really know much about Oppenheimer. I didn't know anything about the cabinet confirmation hearing portion of his history. So
the second half of his career, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you want to learn a ton about Oppenheimer, because I saw in the credits that this was based on a book, because the whole time I'm just going like, there's no way Nolan just knows all of this stuff about Robert Oppenheimer, and then he's adapting a book. Okay, this makes a lot more sense. But yeah, it was good. Like it's weird. I wouldn't say like I'm head over heels for the movie. It was just a good movie. I know it was nominated for a lot, and I haven't seen a lot of the Best Picture nominees, so I'm kind of curious to see now what else is out there in the field. I need to plant some more flags before the Oscars come up, which I think is soon, within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know. I keep getting the AMC ads. The awards movies are showing at the theater. And I think they even had a thing up when I was there for for Dune. So yeah, absolutely, it's that time of year to catch those.
Yeah, one thing that was really nice is we watched it on Peacock, and I was not going to watch it on Peacock if I was going to have to deal with ads throughout the movie. But luckily, I think they kind of know based on like the popularity and proximity of the movie to the Academy and everything like that. All you have to do is watch a couple commercials before the movie, and then it's commercial 3 all the way through. But we have that paid tier that also has ads in it, so I don't know how it operates on some of the other tiers. But yeah, that's I guess that's my PSA to go watch Oppenheimer before it's too late. And then, Chris, you shocked me when you told me that this was over a decade old.
Yeah, so Mike's about to talk about a video game that came out with the Wii U. Like, I literally had this game for the Wii U, and we bought a Wii U, my wife and I, when we were dating, so we could play this very specific game because of how fun it is. Actually, this is probably one of my favorite games. Even casual, and we have it for the Switch now as well, which I assume that's what you played it on.
Yeah, I've been playing on a Switch. I borrowed it from my neighbor across the street, technically from his son. So thank you to Dex, who lives across the street, for letting me borrow his video game. Yeah, I was chatting with him, and I was like, I kind of want to play a Mario game. Yeah. But Mario games, to their credit, I guess, never drop in value used. It almost seems like they cost more money if they're used because they're so hard to find. So I was like, I don't really feel like dropping like $60 on like a Mario game right now. So like, we got a couple of them. So I borrowed Super Mario 3D World, which is if you don't keep track of the lineage of Mario games, that's the one where you turn into a cat.
Yes,
so
Cat
that's
Mario.
how I remember which one this is, and it's kind of fun playing it because it is this mixture between the 2D gameplay and the 3D gameplay. Now, I haven't played the newest game, which is Wonder, but based on the trailers that I've seen for it, Wonder seems very much rooted in 2D side-scrolling.
Mario So just so you know, Mario alternates between 3D and 2D. After this was the new Super Mario Brothers, which was a 2D side-scroller. Then Odyssey for the Switch is an open-world 3D world one.
Yeah.
And then back to the Wonder, which is in fact two-dimensional.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Or side-scrolling.
So 3D World is really fun. I love being a cat. I love going kind of back to this magical, like, pick up and put down world where I don't have to entrench myself into anything. It's super easy to pull up a second controller, and my wife can play a world with me, and she can dip in and out if she wants. I like that you can change characters on the fly. That's fun. But one thing that is really, really difficult, and I don't understand if I'm going to get better at this the more I play the game. I'm on the 3rd world already, and I feel like I still haven't gotten a handle of this. It's fucking smashing blocks. It's so hard to do in a 3-dimensional world because they're affixed very much to a singular plane, and like you really have to make sure you're under them. Like sometimes I think I'm under a block and I jump. Oh, I missed it. Okay, let me move a little bit. No, I missed it. And now I'm on the other side. No, now I'm in front of it. So sometimes getting those block hits is infuriating enough to make me not want to play the game. So I don't know if other people are better at getting on it, but it is fun being the cat, so that's enough to kind of get me over the hump a little bit.
The power-ups are great. The fact you can have one in storage as well, right? Like you have one power-up in storage. There's the cat, which is funny because it's a little bell, like for the collar. Every character has a cat version of themselves, so it's not just Mario. Everyone has a cat suit with the colors.
I love the Captain Toad levels. Those are so much fun. I would just play an entire Captain Toad game.
They did. They came out with a game, Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, which
I want to play that.
Which was for Wii U and Switch. So it's actually on Switch, so you can get that one. So it's a whole world game dedicated to that. The fun part is going back, getting the secrets, getting all the hidden stars, right? The green stars, I believe. Going back and unlocking those.
Seems to be 3 green stars per level, and like. One thing that Mario's always been amazing at is teaching the player how to play the game. Like those first couple levels are always just like so easy, and you think, oh, this game is going to be a cakewalk. Then you start to get a couple more levels in, you're like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see how they're cranking up the difficulty now. Now I'm not getting 3 stars regularly every time. I have to hunt down these other ones. So that's just a shout out of me being far behind playing old Mario games. So
it's a great. Well, here's the thing I want to tell you, Mike. As a parent to be, Mario is the games that brings everyone together, right? kids of all ages. You give them a little control. You give them a controller. You're playing with them. There's low stakes in Mario, right? There's no real game over. You just have to start the world over sometimes. So, absolutely, you're going to be playing a lot more Mario games, kind of going forward. so buckle up for that. But absolutely, I can second Super Mario 3D World, and then I believe the one you have is it Bowser's Fury? Is attached to that as well?
Yeah, what is that? Explain to me. Should I play that right after?
Yeah, that's essentially, it's not DLC. They never released it for the Wii U, but it's extra content they created for the Switch version. So you actually have some extra content to play with Bowser's Fury in that regard. So,
okay, so it's like an additional game.
Yeah,
because on the boot screen it tells me to pick one or the other.
It's pretty much. Yeah, it's not integrated into the other game. It's a separate game, if you will, similar to I don't know, I can't think of something how I would do it, but like it is a different game, but it picks up the quote unquote story or plot from World, if you will. So
that's good. Okay,
yeah, it adds value when they re-release a game for Wii U to Switch that they just had to burn to an SD card pretty much because it plays and looks the same. But absolutely.
I saw that there's a new Princess Peach game that just came out where just play as Peach, and she gets to try on these different costumes, and she gets those powers. Like, you can be like a ninja and stuff. That looks fun. Yeah. I kind of want to play that.
Yeah, Princess Peach Showtime comes out at the end of this month, actually, and she has like a Sherlock suit and like you mentioned, a cowboy suit, I think, as well. There's like a sword, a fencing suit based on it. So I think that's pretty cool that she's getting her own game and has those abilities to do that in there. And I believe, someone else correct me if I'm wrong, Mario versus Donkey Kong, which we talked about month or 2 months ago, which is a remaster of the 3DS one, is now out on Switch as well. So if you're a Mario fan, this is your month right here. This is your time to be playing Mario.
So many Mario things in my life.
Yes. Okay, so because the show notes are light this week, folks, that's why we're taking so long on all this other stuff, including mayonnaise. We're going to jump into the actual superhero news, and we're going to start with, not really. I'm no longer surprised when James Gunn posts anything. He's not surprising me anymore. I'm just like, oh, like another thing that should probably be a press release that we're getting on social media. And that is James Gunn has revealed the Superman logo, because everyone has to know what the S is going to be on a suit, and that the title has changed from Superman Legacy. Rather than that, it is now just called Superman for 2025, Mike. Despite the fact, yet like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, he shared a post with a script that said Superman Legacy on it. They've changed their name just to Superman. So, looking at this logo, a couple things. We talked about this off the air. Number one, it's the S from Kingdom Come. I don't know if you know that the logos from the Kingdom Come Superman, which was actually worn by Brandon Routh in that was at Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover on the Arrowverse when he returned to Superman. But this has yellow instead of black, and then you called out, you point out there's snow all over this as well. And to me, that indicates the Fortress of Solitude, which is in the snow. You think it could be Frost Breath? Could literally be anything.
I want to say, for the record, your idea makes much more sense.
Yeah.
Because, I don't think Frost Breath is just going to make snow that falls on him necessarily. But it does make me think, out of all the Superman movies we've had in recent history, Frost Breath is usually not highlighted in any way. We get the laser beam vision, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like if Gunn kind of wanted to make a more modern, unique statement, throw in some Frost Breath for us, that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah. Showcase the powers, because he's not new for the first time, right? This Superman is supposed to have existed. He's not learning his powers as we go. He should have some powers.
I think the title change makes sense. He's trying to reboot and restart and reignite an entire movie studio. So putting Legacy in the title, it just gives me kind of feelings of Superman Returns, right? We're like, oh, okay, the semicolon titled Superman movie didn't really work previously. And they already did the alternate of like Man of Steel, kind of like, well, we're not going to actually use the character's name. We're going to use the other moniker. So going back to Superman, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. So I guess we'll get our subtitle in this whatever next sequel they make for Superman.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think if you check, Superman Returns wasn't a semicolon, but it just had an extra on it, right? Like, I think the Batman Returns was an homage to Batman Returns. It was Superman Returns, but that's fine. It wasn't for everybody, but Superman, they're filming it now. This is here. There was some AI generated quote unquote set photos based on this, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's the whole suit." It wasn't the suit. It was very much AI. So you can check that and turn that down if you want. But overall, cool, right? It looks like it's actually happening, Mike. I guess that's always our thing when people can talk a lot about projects or things, especially at Warner Brothers, and then they never see the light of day. So this is good to know that they are out there filming it and doing that. One of the things somebody called out here is that in Man of Steel, his suit is Kryptonian, right? Has that Kryptonian texture, and that this has more Earth stitching and patterning to it as well. So it looks like it might be an Earth-made suit. I don't know if he's making them himself or someone's giving them to him, but do you think we'll get a suit origin as always in this movie, or he's just going to start with it?
Do we think the S is going to stand for hope? Is that what we're getting at here? Like, do we need that explanation all over it? I always hem and haw over the existence of superhero suits. I just want them to make sense. To me, Gunn, I hope you wrote a nice scene in there that explains why he dresses like he does.
The one thing is, I will say of the Kingdom Come logo in this one is it's not a direct S. It looks like a big, like a wide stroke across a diamond crest, if you will, because it has like the tiny top and the tiny bottom. It kind of blends into it. So I'd be interested to see if it is an S or if it is supposed to be, as you mentioned, something else along the way. But anyway, you can check that out. We have linked that here to the Instagram post in our show notes. On the video game kick, because occasionally we get in a bunch of video game stuff, good or bad. The Mandalorian video game we talked about a couple weeks ago has been canned already. EA has laid off, I think, at least 5% of their workforce, including confirming themselves they have scrapped the Star Wars first-person shooter game, which we had pretty solid rumors on that it was going to be the Mandalorian based game. However, they will continue working on titles that have proven successful, including the Jedi, like Fallen Order titles, if you will. So
yeah, I mean, I think the part of the news here is that they said EA is leaning away from doing licensed content. Yep. Which is weird because when I think of EA, I only exclusively think of licensed content. So I don't know exactly. I'm sure. Do they do Assassin's Creed, or am I thinking?
No, that's Ubisoft.
Somebody else. Okay, so I don't even know what EA does. I'm sure somebody could tell me, and I'd be like, okay, that
EA
makes sense.
Sports. It's in the game. That's all I got.
I think of all of the licensed sports game. I think all of the licensed Star Wars or just other IP that they've created. So I'm like, what is left if they don't do IP? I mean, you're seeing this across like so many different industries right now of just contraction of everyone thought the behavior that people had during the pandemic was just going to persist forever, and everyone was always going to be at home playing video games, which is kind of silly to think that was going to happen. So I'm kind of curious, is this contraction just more of stabilization to back what it was like in 2019, or are they trying to totally pivot their entire company to just, I don't know, microtransactions and an original IP?
So I will say right now, this is a microcosm of the video games / tech industry as a whole. Mike, you probably see the titles everywhere, right? Like tech industry is laying off, video game industry is laying off. The pandemic, we all played video games. You and me, we played Call of Duty, and I don't think I've played Call of Duty since the world opened back up. Kind of thing. Like we sit down, we played a lot of video games, we had a lot of fun. But when everything kind of came out, people aren't relying on video games for entertainment. And I just pulled up their EA's Wikipedia page, and they don't have a lot of games, but they had, starting in 2016, an EA Originals label. And there's maybe a dozen games in here, man. Like it's not a lot of original titles. So like for them to say we're leaning away from licensed titles, maybe they're licensing less titles, because that's going to bring us into the next topic here, and we can lump this all in together, is that the Iron Man and Black Panther games that EA has announced, they're going to continue working on those. Like, literally, despite saying they're getting away from licenses, they are still maintaining big licenses right across the board. So I can't, I don't know if I believe them, but like the only games I can see of in here of on the EA original games is like, do you remember the game It Takes Two? Have you heard of it? Mm-hmm. That's in there, and Unravel and Unravel 2. But everything else, I don't know these games, Mike. And I'm a gamer. Like, I'm not a casual gamer. I play a lot of games, and I don't know these originals, so I don't know how they can lean on these, even for, I guess, if you would say, microtransactions, because I just don't see the games having that much traffic.
Does EA have their own Fortnite? Like, what is their like online metaverse world that they have? I don't. Is it like Valorant or like what is?
Like a free to play kind of game.
Yeah, I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have one. I just don't know what it is.
I don't see it. I don't see any in here. Kind of going.
But I mean, like. And if that's not the case, those are the massive moneymakers. Like that is where you radically transform the balance sheets of your company. So maybe that's their strategy of like, let's kind of refocus some of these teams on something that we own entirely.
So they don't. So a lot of these, again, I'm like, soccer, NHL, UFC, WRC, The Sims. They own The Sims probably. F1, Super Mega Baseball. EA Sports, like I don't see any games other than sports in here under EA. I will say I believe they do Battlefield that would be their closest mainline competitor, but Battlefield has not done well since its last launch. The game had 2042, did not do very well, so I believe they are kind of up in the air on that. I see Dragon Age games that are upcoming. Skate, you remember the Skate games?
Trying to dissect EA over here,
but when I associate EA with something, it's not like I don't even associate EA with Star Wars. I associate Respawn, which is a subsidiary of EA, of course. But when I think of EA, I only think of EA Sports. It's in the game. That's literally all I think of, and that might be who I am and how we grew up with that slogan everywhere. But like, where like you mentioned, where is your free-to-play shooter, looter, whatever it is?
Where's your moneymaker that brings in the whales? I mean, Iron Man and Black Panther, to me, it just seems like those aren't on the chopping block because they're just too far into development. Yeah, and maybe I think the Mandalorian game is just not as far, and they could axe it earlier. I
think also Marvel games are, you're gonna get your return on a Marvel game regardless. Like I know the Avengers game didn't do good. It made its money back in sales, but it as a live service game, which is where they put their investment, it didn't return live service. Right? No one's buying skins. No one's buying that stuff for that game. But the single player games tend to be selling pretty well, like even Final Fantasy Rebirth. A lot of single player games are pushing that down the road. So hopefully they can do that. But maybe their whales are the sports games, because sports games, they may release a new version, but most of those are like, hey, download this new team, download this new update, or like download these packs for the every year, rather than release a yearly version, if you will.
Now, if I could replace my entire team with the Avengers, and I could have like Thor throwing Hail Marys, and T'Challa could catch it in the end zone, then maybe I'd finally pick up a copy of Madden.
You went NFL Blitz is what you know.
Yeah, but I mean, this does make me a little bit nervous for the Iron Man and Black Panther game, right? Because if we know that they don't have a commitment to these licensings going forward, I could imagine them like not accommodating like resource requests from these teams that are making these games, right? They're not necessarily going to want to intentionally put out garbage, right? They want to make money from what they've already paid for licensing, right? But like, are they going to go the extra mile and create interesting like DLC, like FromSoft is doing with like the new Elden Ring DLC coming out? Like, no, I can't imagine that they're going to be interested in that. But I could see them changing their mind if like this Iron Man or Black Panther game comes out, everybody is in love with it, say it's better than Insomniac Spider-Man. I could see them going, oh, okay, no, we'll keep this going. This is fine. We'll keep this part of the company going with licensing, but everywhere else will be cut. So I don't know. Video game world is so crazy because the timelines are so long. It's insanely expensive.
Trends
Delays
change.
happen all the time.
Like gaming trends change so quickly as well. Like what what we were playing 6 years ago, Mike, is not what we're playing today, right? Like the trends change, people change. Fortnite's still here, but it's evolving. That's a game that evolves. I'm trying to think. Call of Duty Warzone is not, to me, it's not on the top of like the articles I'm looking at all the time. So I am interested to see how this evolves. I think for them, one of the games that they own probably the most is The Sims. They need to come out with The Sims 5. I think that would involve people back in, right? They evolve that game into modern systems. But yeah, I don't know, just looking at this, what they have. The licensing deals, especially sports teams, are where EA thrives, and I don't see them really sticking to this too much or making originals. But maybe they could. Maybe they could pull out a sneak hit on us, Mike, a free-to-play game that no one expected, and maybe save themselves. But overall, video games are becoming more expensive to make, and the release dates are pushing, and stuff is just not coming out as what it used to anymore. So hopefully they can right size that ship back in the other direction. But speaking of video games, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Wrath of the Mutants, a arcade game that came out in 2012 from Raw Thrills, is now finally getting a home console / PC release this year. And you might be saying, oh, the Turtles arcade game, didn't they just do the Wrath of Shredder DLC extension of that? No, actually, this is an entirely different arcade game. So if you walked into like a Dave & Buster's, they would probably have this there that you would play with the Turtles from the 2012 Nickelodeon show, Mike. And, we watched the trailer, you watched it beforehand, you kind of brought up like the art style is wild to see today because we have so many other Turtle designs out in the wild now. But to revisit one 12 years later is mind-blowing.
Yeah, I've been so blue-pilled so aggressively by Mutant Mayhem. I just love that movie and art style so much. It is weird to see a brand new trailer for something back in the 2012s. Like, my interest in Turtles has ebbed and flowed throughout my lifetime. Obviously peaking in childhood, diminishing as
peaking in Michael Bay era. That's not like, don't like
But you have like anime coming in and other action cartoons kind of like filling in the competition. And my general appetite for CG animation, isn't that great. So this kind of era of Turtles, I wasn't really super drawn to, even though I've heard the stories are really, really good and people really like it. But, I was just in my part of my life where I just was not interested in that. So I'm sure there is a nostalgia pocket for this game, 100%. But just at my current Turtles targeting system is not focusing on this one.
I'm trying to see here how many it had. 5 seasons, so this ran the longest. So it's probably why it got the actual video game in the consoles. Ran quite a bit longer than most of the other ones, other than the original. So, but it is interesting this game being ported much later. It's running off an arcade thing that it doesn't look that good, right? It's very static cameras, very much like the regular Turtles arcade. But I will tell you, the cool part about this is they are bringing back the original voices of the Turtles to from that era to play to voice their characters over in the game. That includes Seth Green, Sean Astin, Mae Whitman, Kevin Michael Richardson, and Nolan North as well. So like they are actually at least not just, hey, we're doing a port, we're bringing in the voice actors to fill in some of those voice acting gaps along the way. For some reason, Mark Hamill pulled up when I looked at this, but it's not telling me why. He's like, what? I wonder who Mark Hamill voiced
or something.
Yeah, I don't
like
think he was.
Baxter Stockman, maybe. Or
yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Krang?
He's not like a normal. He's not like on the list of it, so I'm gonna have to look up the characters. But anyway,
I feel like he could do a Krang.
Yeah, Cavaxis, Lord of the Demo Dragons and ruler of the Netherworld.
All right,
cool. He was the main antagonist in season 5. So, yeah, which was the last season. So absolutely, I mean, again, no shortage of star power behind this. It had 121 episodes, so cool. But like, this brings up to point something I saw the other day. Turtles are now in Fortnite, so we have a Fortnite version. We have the arcade version, the pixelated version. We have the Mutant Mayhem version. Now we have the Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated show look, right? A different version. I've heard that and what's the Last Ronin coming out? I've heard that they're going to lean into a Turtles multiverse eventually to kind of bring some of these popular versions together. I don't know. I mean, there are multiverses in the Turtles comic books in the TV show from the 80s, Mike, if you remember. So it's not weird because Crane comes from an alternate universe, but I don't know how they're going to do it. Are they going to do like Power? You know how Power Rangers has kind of brought back some of the retro Power Rangers lately to be, because Power Rangers I think is just as big as Turtles again for some reason in the fandom. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but if you are a Turtles fan or have been a Turtles fan, I guarantee one of your favorite versions is about to show back up somewhere, whether you like it or not. Yeah. I just hope it's not in the movie, Mike. The upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem sequel, Untitled sequel, is coming out October 9th, 2026, and I guarantee it will not be multiverses, but involve Shredder. But giving it 2.5 years between releases makes me feel really good about this, Mike. That they are not, again, what did Seth Rogen? They weren't crunching their animators. They're giving them time to breathe and do a good job, and it showed in the movie. So it sounds like they're giving them some time to breathe to make this movie right in the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's great. Seth Rogen unfortunately has a bit of a sordid past when it came to Sausage Party and the animators that worked on that movie. I don't know how much he personally was involved, or if it was just whoever ran that specific studio that the main studio worked for hired. I don't know all the ins and outs, but it seems like he is taking lessons from that kind of situation onto Mutant Mayhem. And yeah, this is the type of thing where I want it to take a while. And actually, the longer it takes, the better, because by the time this comes out, if it does hit this October 6th release date, I will have a 2-year-old. So I will make sure I shove as much turtle stuff in front of their face so I can take them to the movie theaters and watch this with them.
So Seth Rogen didn't direct Sausage Party. He just did a voice in it.
I think he was like an executive producer.
Yeah, but it says
he was definitely creatively involved.
But they call out co-director Greg Tiernan as the problem. They were like, co-director forced them to work overtime for free. So
okay, well, either way, Seth Rogen was over there in the corner going like, if I'm ever in charge, I'm not doing this.
Right, lessons learned. But absolutely. And then you're also going to have 2 seasons of Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Paramount Plus in between. So, this story, it won't be like, oh, there's nothing for 2.5 years between movies. We're going to have a little bit more. So I think that's cool. That's going to flesh this world out a little bit more. They can jump forward a little bit and have some space in between them, right? We don't need to see them go right into high school and start the movie from high school point of view. So, very excited. I probably might revisit that this summer, Mike. Mutant Mayhem. Watch it again, because that was such a fun time to do that. Moving right along, one of the actors I love to hate so much is Jared Leto, and he has somehow personally injected himself into the Tron threequel, Tron Ares, and it is apparently filming, and we now have our first image from it showing off a red program without a user. So we get to I love the Tron aesthetic, Mike. The old 80s aesthetic. I love the 2010 aesthetic. I'm gonna love this 2025 aesthetic already, I can tell. Absolutely love Tron. The red is just killer. I love this red. I love the suit look, but boy do I hate Jared Leto's name attached to this. Like I have I've never been like, this is my mayonnaise right here, right? Like by himself, I'm not. This is, I have Jared Leto ick by himself. But put him in some occasional movies and he can do okay, right? Fight Club, he got the hell beat out of him, stuff like that. But like, I'm on the fence on this. It's got a huge cast lineup. They haven't told us who's what, but this movie will follow Ares, a highly sophisticated program who is sent from the digital world to the real world on a dangerous mission, marking humankind's first encounter with AI beings. Well, we know from Tron Legacy, Olivia Wilde's character was able to get out at the end of that. So maybe she stayed hidden. Is this a reboot? Is this a soft reboot or soft sequel? I don't know. But I love the goddamn aesthetic, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that worries me the most about this movie is, are we going to date ourselves by leaning so heavily into first encounter with AI beings, right? We are at kind of like the tip of the spear when it comes to AI, and we just have like a very kind of singular way of thinking about it at the moment. And I just know it's one of those things where it's going to change so fast, so quickly, that we're gonna have so many different opinions about it in the future. So I just feel like this is already like the script that's being written right now. I feel like it's already dated, right? Talking about the idea of like AI, because when we did it in the past, it was all science fiction, right? Will Smith's I Robot, or like Steven Spielberg's AI movie. They're all talking about a theoretical future, but now that we're here, it just kind of feels like, a James Bond movie where the MacGuffin is a GPS, right? Like it's so synonymous now; it's not even really a thing anymore. I mean, I think some people are maybe taking the synopsis too literally and think, we're going to be in the real world the whole time. Yeah. The first thing I thought of was, if anybody remembers the game Mega Man Battle Network, I love that game because there's 2 levels of playing in that game. You're in the real world, and then you also jump into the digital world. So I think a cool version of this movie is both. You have like this action adventure movie that's happening in the real world, and then it dips in and out. Because if you're thinking about the internet, like the digital world can be like literally anywhere. It'd be cool to kind of see somebody have to jump into a system and then out of a system. So I think there's some more fun things that you can do with Tron in general.
I don't think it'll be all in there, but I think that's a way to make it a cheaper movie, right? Like, this isn't a Disney follow product. This is a Jared Leto and one of the producers of, I think, Tron Legacy are pushing for it. So they're like, to make it, you have to keep your budget low to show a return. And I'm worried that they will not be in the grid to keep that budget low, if you will. You know what I'm saying?
I think we know Daft Punk isn't returning, so I think they'll be saving a little bit of money there on the there goes any chance of me wanting to hear it. They're probably going to hire Danny Elfman or something. Hey, Danny, can you do us a Tron soundtrack? That would be wild. I have no Tron nostalgia. I didn't. The movie wasn't put in front of me like the original Star Wars was when I was a kid growing up. The remake was it was cool, but I don't think the story was that
it's a sequel,
engaging. And it was like the first kind of like. Was it Jeff Bridges or okay, I get the Bridges and the Daniels confused in my head. So that was kind of like the first like real de-aged person on a screen. That was kind of weird. So I don't really have a dog in this fight when it comes to Tron. But the ride at Disney World looks really cool. And I think there's one in China. I don't remember where the other one is.
I think it's France. I think it's France and Disney World are the 2 Tron.
But I want to ride the ride, and you are correct. The aesthetic is really cool if you detach it, entirely from the narrative. So it makes rides fun. Well, it keeps the rides alive.
The thing with Tron is, and I think it always has something, because like the first one was technically prowess, right? A lot of CG movie, in a movie that historically we've never had a lot of CGI, right? It may not have been a blockbuster, but it has a legacy. The other one mentioned the first de-aging, which is now like every other Marvel movie. We have a de-aged character for most of it. They really set some precedents or broke some early ground, if you will. They didn't do it the best, but they did it first and showed that it could be done for long periods of time. So I think that's great. But to me, Tron is one of those things where if you showed someone the circle or like someone wearing a Tron suit from either era, people are like, oh, I know that's Tron, whether they've watched it or not. And I think that's important. I just cannot stress this enough. I hate Jared Leto. Despite the fact that maybe more been time on Disney Plus already for him, I just am not excited about him like ham-fisting his way through this project. Did you watch Blade Runner 2049?
Not yet. Maybe one day.
Okay. Well, he's in it as a character without eyes who can see with his little robots around him. So like I really just don't care. Like I always see him for who he is, not the character he's playing, and that's rough for me. So hopefully maybe they can use some of the suits, the looks for the Tron characters, the program looks to obfuscate him, if you will, and make my experience a little better. But that's a personal thing. We'll see how it works. I'm excited. I want to see a trailer. I think that'll really sell us on what's happening, rather than just the first photo, if you will, and a quick log line. Lastly, we've talked about this before. Jurassic World is getting a reboot, a sequel, whatever it is. Jurassic Park 7, I believe, is what it would fall under. Jurassic World 4, what have you. And the new title, we've talked about this. What do we call it? What do you do with Jurassic World? You can't call it Jurassic World 4. You can't call it Jurassic Park 7. So the new title is tentatively, through a rumor, Jurassic City, which would mean more of a places where people live along dinosaurs in these Jurassic cities, I suppose. Don't really have a plot. But one of the interesting parts about this is there's already a 2015 movie with that name, Mike. And
yeah, it's I believe it's streaming on Tubi, possibly. It's one of those movies.
Oh, I put in the plot here in the notes because, boy, does it not sound good at all, Mike.
Yes, please tell me.
So in this, a trio of sorority girls who are temporary guests after getting busted for hijinks after a particularly obnoxious party find themselves trapped in the prison where these dinosaurs escape and go on a vicious rampage, killing 90% of the prison population, including the guards.
Honestly, Chris, that synopsis in the hands of probably, I'm sure, a better director and a better writer would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
Because dinosaurs in a prison, that sounds, we're getting dangerously close to Dino Crisis, which is exactly where I want to be. But I'm sure the lawyers are going to have a field day in either direction, right? You know, if they go towards Dino Crisis, I think Capcom owns that. We're getting sued over there. But if they want to do Jurassic City, I'm sure they are going to flex very much. I mean, I don't see a trademark anywhere on this Jurassic City poster from 2015, so I don't know.
They could probably pay to shut them up. Be like, hey, look, here's some money that you didn't make back on your movie.
Yeah,
be
exactly. But when I think of the title, I don't necessarily think of a harmonious city. I'm just trying to think of dinosaur disaster and the location, right? And I think a couple weeks ago I pitched it maybe happening on a campus, you know, just trying to think of a different location. This seems to be a little bit wider in scope because we don't know how large of a city we're talking here. Like if we're talking Manhattan, I mean, that could be kind of cool. You know, I didn't really like how The Dark Knight Rises sealed off the entire city and they were like under siege. But can you imagine like sealing off kind of like a island city and then it's covered in dinosaurs?
Well, I'm going to go the other way. Like, what if they've managed like, hey, we can't get rid of all the dinosaurs, but we've given them like we're capturing them, putting them in like a home.
Gave them jobs. Are they bagging groceries?
Give them Nevada. Nobody wants Nevada. Give them Nevada. So like they're putting them in a like quote unquote city. It's not a real city. They're not taking over a city, but like there's like they put them in this place and like, hey, we've got the dinosaurs like in this big 1,000-mile corral kind of thing in this Jurassic City. Maybe people start trying to visit it or like steal stuff. I don't know. I don't know how this works. I don't know if I like the title even. It's not really ringing to me, hey, this is something we need to be doing. I don't know. Are you sold on it? You sound more sold on it than I do. I just don't like it. It doesn't roll off the tongue.
I mean, I like dinosaurs in movies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I just don't like that. For the last couple years, I have not been very satisfied with my dinosaurs in movies. So I guess I like that they keep trying, but I would love it to just bring in totally new creative direction. Would be really fun. So Jurassic City, I'm trying to think, like, I like the idea of the plot of Jurassic Park 3, right? Even though the execution in the movie are overall, you know, we have a talking dinosaur in a dream sequence. I mean, that kind of shows you the direction that movie was going. But I do like the smaller idea of the plot of just like, we need to send in one person, or I guess it ends up being a small group of people, to rescue one person in the middle of all this dinosaur madness and get out. It's not about the greater, you know, socio-political ideology.
It's not we're not breeding mutant dinosaurs anymore.
Yeah. It's just about there's essentially a secret agent that needs to get their mission done, but dinosaurs in the way. Yeah. So I think that could be kind of fun if like there is if we're continuing off the narrative from Jurassic World, right? Let's kind of go with your idea of like somehow they've been able to kind of herd all of the dinosaurs in the United States. You know, you can't get them all on a boat or whatever and ship them to an island anymore. You know, the cat's out of the bag. So they kind of herded them into like one kind of abandoned city, and then that's where they live now, right? Yeah. But then you find out there's something in the middle of that city, some MacGuffin. Is it a person? Is it a thing? Is it a technology? You know, is it a treasure map? I don't know. There's something in the middle there that somebody needs to get to, so they have to get like a ragtag team together, to get in there, and they're so. I mean, and that's pretty basic storytelling. So I think you have the framework there to like do something cool and not overcomplicate it with like locusts, mutant locusts.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess that's my rough.
Yeah, Jurassic World was a lot of like, hey, we're breeding dinosaurs together that should never be bred, or like just creating new ones. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. We've done that. We've done that for 3 movies, right? I agree with you. We need to again. I think we said it several weeks ago. We need to strip it back to the majesty of dinosaurs, as we imagine they were, and just have a good time. Like, hey, the dinosaurs are doing their own. There's animals trying to survive, right? They're not necessarily. We're not breeding hitman dinosaurs, right? Like, oh, this dinosaur only wants to kill people, or it's too smart for us. We just need like, oh, you have to get in. You have to get into the city. But like, maybe the dinosaurs have like after time have created like their own patterns, right? Like, oh, this is where the Triceratops migrate, and like the Velociraptors are over here, kind of thing. And like, you've got to get your, like you mentioned, the path through the city to something, and we can't just drop you in. Like, we can't like, helicopter you in and out. You've got to do it by stealth and by foot, if you will. Very similar, I would say, maybe like The Last of Us, the season of The Last of Us, right? Like, it's like a journey across large country spaces, if you will, because they can't really go very far. There's maybe there's people who live in the Jurassic City, like, right, and like people who stay there, and like, oh, we don't want you here, and they're also fighting them as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've blocked most of this movie out of my head, but this is kind of what was that awful Zack Snyder zombie movie that came out on Netflix, Army of the Dead? Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what that was too. Just replace the zombies with dinosaurs. Don't give the dinosaurs culture like he tried to give the zombies culture.
Don't film it with a 50mm lens on your shoulder that you got at the Canon store.
Don't make one of them secretly a robot and tell us you're going to explain that later in a side quest.
Yeah. So, absolutely. I think there's a lot of opportunity with this, as long as they, again, take it back to the basics. And the director for this is Gareth Edwards, right? He did the Godzilla. He did Rogue One. He is, can handle this kind of stuff, I think, on the scale. But he's a visually stunning director for sure.
Yeah. Because he did that movie that I talked about a couple weeks ago, The Creator.
Yep.
Visually beautiful. Script was awful. So just give him a different script. Yeah. Somebody else write that, please.
Well, he the original writer of the Jurassic Park, the first movie, is writing that. Remember? So we have.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So we have that. So that person, the first movie was not about mixing DNA on dinosaurs, but the evolution and like how dinosaurs live in the wild. They weren't out to kill. They were just trying to live, right, and create new life. So I have hope, but. Studio interference, always gotta watch out for that. See what we're doing. So, oh well. All right, Mike, that is it for this week's news. Anything else before we wrap it up?
Well, if anybody else has the Mayo ick, or the Chris Miracle Whip fever. I was trying to think of something that had alliteration, but I couldn't figure it out.
That's cool.
I want to know the lines of our listeners.
It always makes me think of, there was a Simpsons episode where Homer walks in and Lisa's crying on the floor, and he's like, that wasn't your mayonnaise, was it? Because he just ate a jar of mayonnaise. And I always think of the Simpsons. And that's like an early season, first 5 seasons kind of thing. So always associated with that. But if people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you at, my friend?
Yeah, they can read my webcomics at Life Rewards Risk or pickledcomics.com. Chris, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN87, or Video Game Systems of the same name. If people want to know more about a show where they can subscribe, follow, listen, whatever they want to do every week, where can they get them goodies at?
Oh, all you got to do is head on over to superheroslate.com. That is where we host our servers with our city covered in dinosaurs. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. You can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Like I just said, do you have the Mayo ick? Or I still can't think of something that alliterates with Miracle Whip. If anyone can think of a positive alliteration with Miracle Whip,
you can whip it good. Go on.
We love our super fans. So if you want to be a super fan of this show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week, folks.
That's right. We will see you guys next week.
Bye.